Notion has been one of my favorite productivity and note-taking tools of all time. It's a really excellent application. But there are two things about it that really concern me that have actually made me switch to something else instead. So what are those two things, and should you care, and what am I using now? Notion does an excellent job of making sure that my notes get synchronized from my Mac to my PC to my iPhone to my iPad and even on the web. And that is a really cool thing. But in order to make that work, I have to use Notion's cloud service. I have to have a Notion account and I have to use their cloud storage. I have no option to not use Notion's cloud service. And for me, that's a bit of a concern. I don't think that Notion is going to use cloud storage that isn't secure. I don't think they're going to trust people with my data that aren't trustworthy. But the fact that I have no control over where that actually goes, I have no control over the server that is housing my data, that does concern me a bit as an IT person. Now, you may not care about that. You just want your notes to be stored and synchronized between devices. And if so, great. But do think about this. If your notes are secure, if you are storing confidential private information or information for, say, clients or colleagues or whatever notes that you need to store there that you don't want someone else to access, do you really trust a server that you can't access, that you have no control over? That's something to think about. Now, obviously, if you stored something, say, in Dropbox or iCloud or Amazon Web Services like S3 or wherever else, then there's a concern there because you don't own those physical servers. You can't walk up to them and inspect them and unplug them and reboot them yourself. You don't own them, right? But Notion doesn't give me an option. I have to use their service and I have no option whatsoever. And that to me is a bit annoying, especially considering the fact that they don't offer end-to-end encryption. Now, they do encrypt my notes, but they don't offer end-to-end encryption. Now, you might think, well, Michael, what's the difference and why do you care? Well, here's the difference. Imagine you've got a lockbox, right? There's data in that box that you don't want someone else to get access to. So you lock it with a key. That way, if someone comes by and they pick up the box and they kind of shake it and they try to open it, they can't get into it without that key. But here's the problem. Without end-to-end encryption, someone else could possibly have a copy of that key and then open that lockbox and get access to whatever's inside of it. And that's a problem. So with end-to-end encryption, the difference there is only you would have access to the key because that key would be created on your local device and kept with you. And then that lockbox would go somewhere else to be stored. And then it comes back to you when you need it, but only you have the key. And that's the difference. So from end to end, it's completely encrypted. And no one else at, whatever service you're using would be able to open that box, even if they wanted to, without your permission and without that key. And that is a really important big deal, especially if you are dealing with confidential information. Now, if you're only storing like a shopping list or, home improvement, things like that, then who cares, right? But if you want to use Notion or whatever tool you're using for confidential private data, then the lack of end-to-end encryption is kind of a big deal. And that is why I switched over to Obsidian. Obsidian does have some lacking features from Notion, and there are some things I don't like about it, which I might make a future video on. But one of the things that it has going for it is the fact that I can store my notes where I want to store my notes. I don't have to use Obsidian's cloud unless I want to. I can store my notes in iCloud or Dropbox or Google Drive. Now, of course, all of those do have their own security risks and pros and cons, of course, to think through your use case and what you want to do. But the fact is I have a choice with Obsidian, whereas with Notion, I don't. Now, they also offer their Obsidian Sync service, which is end-to-end encrypted. So you can use that to synchronize from your Mac to your PC to whatever other device you want to synchronize to. And that is a really cool thing. And I think the cost for that is like $8 or $10 per month, which is really not bad, honestly, especially if you are using it for business or you just want a service that works pretty well. Personally, I use my iCloud, which I have set to be end-to-end encrypted. So I'm reasonably confident that no one else is going to be accessing my notes, and that's perfectly fine and cool. But, I like the fact that with Obsidian, I do have that choice and I can use end-to-end encryption, whereas with Notion, I don't have that choice. Now, to be clear here, I am not at all saying that Notion is a bad tool. Notion still remains one of my favorite tools of all time for productivity and taking notes. And if someone came to me asking, well, what should I use for taking notes? Honestly, Notion is hard not to recommend. as long as that person is not going to be storing anything super confidential that they wouldn't, the world wouldn't end if someone else were to access that data. I mean, certainly none of us loves the idea of someone else getting access to our data without permission, but Notion, I mean, if you use it, just don't store something that's like super confidential. I would never ever store something that is like super secret and company confidential in there, in my personal opinion. Now, you may trust what Notion's doing as far as security, and they do a lot with security, which is great. But my personal opinion, as an IT person and as someone who wants the best security for his information and that of his clients, I'm choosing to use Obsidian because it is offering me an option to use a storage location that is encrypted, and I can choose where my notes get stored, which is a big deal. Now, again, I am not at all saying that Notion's bad. So if you like Notion, keep using Notion. But if you are someone like me who is security conscious, who wants to ensure that your notes are never going to be read by anyone else, then honestly, Obsidian is hard not to like. So if you like the video, then please click that thumbs up button and like it and comment and share it. I would really, really appreciate it. Now, it's been a while since I've uploaded a video here, of course, and we've had some house changes, and we actually built a new little room studio here for me at home, which is pretty cool. I have an amazing wife who's been very supportive and patient with me on that, so I greatly appreciate her on that. But I switched to a different microphone here. This is a Samson Q9U over the Deity VO7U, which I was using previously. So I really, really like this, and I think that going forward, I'm looking forward to making some more content. So if you like content like this, if you like tech topics and productivity kinds of things, then hit that subscribe button, and I will see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.